There's a town in Victoria where the local MP told Parliament he can no longer let his staff walk to the post office to collect mail. A 10-minute walk. In broad daylight, Victoria's supposed to be the livable state, right? But what the tourism brochures won't show you is the other Victoria, where the Italian mafia held annual meetings and an informant was found buried under a chicken coop, where a national magazine figured out how to buy ice within hours of arriving, where a baby's murder from 1997 has never been solved. Brace yourself. Number 1 is unlike anything you've heard. Your town was purpose-built in the 1960s to house power station workers and the power station closed. You didn't just lose an employer, you lost the reason the town exists. Churchill, Victoria. Population about 5,000. Crime increased 36.9% from 2023 to 2024. The sharpest spike of any Latrobe Valley town. In 2024, this town of 5,000 recorded 117 breaches of family violence orders. That's 1 breach for roughly every 43 residents. Add 31 crimes against the person, 14 stalking and harassment charges, 10 drug possession offenses, 9 weapons charges, 7 arsons, and 5 drug manufacturing busts. Churchill sits closest to the decommissioned Hazelwood Power Station, which closed in March 2017. The town was built for workers who no longer have work. Federation University provides some economic activity, but the surrounding community faces the same deep disadvantage as the broader Latrobe Valley. Its compact size means the family violence crisis isn't spread thin, it's concentrated, like living inside a pressure cooker where nobody turned off the heat. And if a purpose-built town losing its purpose sounds rough, the next place was built as Victoria's oldest European settlement and still can't get its crime rate under control. Your town's entire economy depends on a single aluminium smelter that's already been bailed out multiple times and cut production to 75%. That's not stability. That's a countdown with a smokestacks. Portland, population about 10,000. Victoria's oldest European settlement, founded in 1834, 362 kilometers from Melbourne. Crimes against the person run at 2,500 per 100,000, double the state average. Your chance of being a crime victim is 1 in 15. Assaults up 6%. Burglary up 11, theft up 19, robbery up 400% from a small base. And the most common offense is breach of family violence orders. The Alcoa aluminium smelter employs around 460 people directly, plus nearly 200 contractors. Previous government bailouts have totaled an estimated $20 billion over 20 years. A closure would devastate the town. And at 3.5 hours from Melbourne, Portland means limited services, limited police, and limited options if things go sideways. There's a town on the Western Highway where a dealer was caught with a large commercial quantity of meth hidden inside a VCR. That's not a Netflix pitch, that's Stowell on a Tuesday. Population about 6,000. Crime rate of 26,656 per 100,000. Only 14% of Victorian suburbs are safer. Assault rate, 1 offense per 23 residents. The Dropping Off the Edge report ranked Stawell 17th in all of Victoria for juvenile convictions and placed it in the most disadvantaged band alongside Ararat. The Western Highway connecting Melbourne to Adelaide runs directly through town. It's a major drug supply route. Multiple interceptions have occurred along this corridor, including a meth lab found in an abandoned post office in the tiny town of Yapi, further down the road. Longtime residents believe cheap housing and negligible police presence is attracting manufacturers and dealers. And when your town's main attraction is the Stawell Gift Foot Race, but your main export is methamphetamine, something went wrong at the planning stage. If your town is the largest city in Southwest Victoria, has a university campus and whale-watching tourism, and your drug offenses just surged 30% in a single year, the brochure needs an asterisk. Warrnambool, population about 35,000. Crime increased 20% from 2023 to 2024. Youth offending hit a 10-year high. Drug offenses surged more than 30% in a single year. The director of the Western Region Alcohol and Drug Center said it plainly. It's concerning because alcohol and drugs run across domestic violence, education, employment, homelessness, and mental health. Regional Cities Victoria specifically briefed the state's new chief commissioner on rising crime and youth antisocial behavior in cities including Warrnambool. A police sergeant confirmed they're processing more people for trafficking and her drug offenses than ever before. Warrnambool looks like a destination. It increasingly behaves like a distribution point. houses a medium security prison with 798 beds, a $52 million treatment center for serious offenders behind electronic fencing, and the ruins of Victoria's old asylum for the criminally insane. You don't need a haunted house for Halloween. You live in one. Ararat, population about 8,000. Crime jumped 25.8% in a single year, the largest percentage increase among Victoria's top 5 worst LGAs. The Dropping Off the Edge report ranked Ararat second in all of Victoria for juvenile convictions and 9th for prison admissions. A local sergeant with 20 years at Ararat Station said he's seen a massive increase in how busy they are. Hopkins Correctional Center holds a high proportion of offenders and protection prisoners. The adjacent Rivergum facility houses serious offenders on post-sentence supervision orders. Families of inmates relocate nearby. Drug supply networks form to service the prison population. Released prisoners often stay local. And J Ward, the maximum security psychiatric ward for the criminally insane that operated from 1887 to 1991, housed Chopper Reed and Gary David. The town's relationship with incarceration isn't historical, it's ongoing. If your town needed a grassroots campaign called Beyond Ice to fund a 30-bed residential drug rehabilitation facility, the name alone tells you the scale of the crisis before the stats even load. Wangaratta, population about 19,000. Total alleged offenders reached a 10-year high in 2025, up 10.5%. Drug possession runs at over 200 cases annually. Family violence order breaches jumped 60% since 2016 to reach 478. Shoplifting up 32%. One Numbeo user summed it up. Wangaratta has declined majorly in livability. Racism, drugs, murder, many suicides, vandalism on the rise. Was a quiet and friendly place to live, but over the past decade it has become a dead end. Another added that historically it's always had gangs and murder. Cannabis cultivation seizures continue across the region. The Beyond Ice campaign succeeded in getting the rehab facility built. Whether it's enough is another question entirely. Your police region can't meet baseline staffing levels 298 times in a single year, and at one point only 3 of 9 highway patrol officers can actually work. That's not a staffing issue, that's an absence wearing a uniform. Wodonga, population about 20,000, crime rate of 15,795 per 100,000. Crime increased 24% over 5 years. 9,500 shifts were impacted by leave in a single financial year. On Numbeo, drug dealing and use is rated 76 out of 100. The NS Dollars Victoria border complicates everything. Different state jurisdictions create opportunities for offenders to cross into Albury and disappear. Voted number 3 in Victoria's town poll with 10% of the vote. Sits on the Hume Highway between Melbourne and Sydney. And when your town's primary claim to fame is being the Victorian half of a twin city where the other half is in a completely different legal jurisdiction, criminals don't see a border, they see an opportunity. There's a town 340 kilometers from Melbourne where the most common crime is violating a family violence order, and a third of those incidents happen with a child in the room. Swan Hill, population about 11,000. Crime rate of 13,297 per 100,000. Violent crime runs 147% higher than the state average. Swan Hill has the 5th highest family violence rate in all of Victoria. 33.4% of family violence incidents had a child present. Your odds of becoming a crime victim, 1 in 14. The town sits on the Murray River in the Mallee region, identified by Infrastructure Victoria as experiencing widespread disadvantage. Towns like nearby Robinvale are among the most disadvantaged in the state. Police coverage across the vast surrounding area is stretched to breaking point, and the isolation that makes the Murray River beautiful also means help takes a very long time to arrive. If your town's crime rate jumped 33% in a single year and nobody outside the Shire noticed, that's the problem in one sentence. Colac, population about 9,200. Crime increased 33% from 2023 to 2024, one of the steepest increases in regional Victoria. Property crime runs at 1 offense per 12.7 people, part of the Grow Disadvantage Initiative alongside Corio, Norlane, and Whittington, which means the government officially recognizes Entrenche. Disadvantage here: agricultural service town, gateway to the Great Ocean Road, limited employment diversification beyond dairy, median household income sits at just over $1,000 a week, the kind of place that looks peaceful from the highway and feels different after dark. And if dairy country turning dangerous sounds unlikely, the next town has stabbings being shared on Snapchat. Stabbing in your town gets shared on Snapchat and police have to publicly appeal for the video, you've crossed a line that country towns aren't supposed to cross. Sale, population about 14,300. Violent crime runs 193% higher than the state average. Crime increased 30% from 2023 to 2024, one of the sharpest jumps in regional Victoria. In May 2023, a 38-year-old man was stabbed to death at the intersection of York and McAllister Streets at 1 in the morning. A 20-year-old was charged with murder the same day. Sale sits on the Princes Highway, the primary Melbourne to East Gippsland drug trafficking corridor, located near RAF Base East Sale and the Bass Strait oil and gas industry. One forum user put it bluntly: Sale I would avoid. People talk about crime and bad behavior, but Sale takes the cake. Listed alongside Morwell, Moe, and Cranbourne as crime-riddled towns in the east of Victoria. If your town is famous for Ned Kelly's Last Stand and your family violence rate is nearly double the state average, the outlaw legacy isn't just historical, it's statistical. Benalla, population about 10,000. Crime hit a decade high in 2025. Criminal incidents up 14.6%. Total offenses up 20.4% to the highest in the past decade. Family violence incidents reached 414, up 21%. At times, Benalla has topped the entire state for family violence per capita. The rate sits at 2,808 per 100,000. State average, 1,497, nearly double. In April 2025, a 54-kilogram cannabis crop was seized from a property on Sydney Road. A separate raid found meth, cannabis, and an illegal sawn-off rifle with silencer. MP Tanya Maxwell cited data showing family incidents exceeded the state average by 92%. One person on Homely was warned not to even think about living there with children. And at 34% unsolved, a third of crimes in Benalla simply go nowhere. Your town of 6,500 has recorded the most crime in the entire Shire every year since 2016. That's not a rough patch. That's a pattern with a postcode. Seymour, crime rate of 24,372 per 100,000. Only 9% of Victorian suburbs are safer. Crimes against the person run 2.6 times the state average. Crime increased 14.6% in 1 year. 39% of crimes remain unsolved. State MP Annabelle Cleland put it plainly. These figures show crime is getting worse in every corner of our community. Offender incidents are skyrocketing, family violence is climbing, and people no longer feel safe in their own homes. These aren't just numbers, they reflect families torn apart. Seymour sits on the Hume Highway near the Pukapunyal Army Base, giving it a transient population that compounds everything. And Victoria Police noted the number of arrests reflects an unacceptable level of offending. Unacceptable, their word, not mine. If your town is the commercial heart of the Latrobe Valley and your crime rate still sits in the 10th percentile for safety, the valley's problems don't stop at Morwell's border. They commute. Traralgon, population about 27,000. Violent crime runs 96% higher than the state average. Property crime, 4,677 per 100,000. Crime increased 12.8% from 2023 to 2024. Traralgon East specifically saw a 38% spike. In 2024, 893 thefts, 106 crimes against the person, 91 drug possession charges, 75 weapons offenses, 24 drug manufacturing cases, 21 arsons. One resident described a large ghetto full of commission housing up in the Cameron Street area that trickles down throughout. Another reported multiple break-ins caught on camera and someone defecating in their driveway. A third summed it up. The valley is high crime and it's Russian roulette if you come across it yourself. Traralgon has better median income than Morwell. It doesn't have better odds. If armed robberies in your police region quadrupled, and most were found to be ICE-related. The drug isn't just present, it's running the economy that the legitimate economy can't. Horsham, population about 15,000, crime rate of 12,989 per 100,000, the 5th highest in all of VA. Victoria, crimes against a person run more than double the state average. Your chance of becoming a crime victim, 1 in 12. Featured in Vice's documentary Ice Towns, the Wimmera Drug Action Coordinator said you would be gobsmacked by how far ICE is reaching into the remotest communities. Central Victorian Police Commander Daryl Clifton added that Country Victoria has never seen anything like this. A Horsham man was arrested in Ararat with 29 grams of heroin and 57 grams of meth hidden inside a VCR intercepted on the Western Highway. A meth lab was found in an abandoned post office in nearby Yapi. Residents believe cheap housing and negligible police presence is attracting manufacturers and dealers. When your rent is low enough to subsidize a drug lab, affordability becomes a different kind of problem. There's a town in Victoria where the Italian Mafia held annual meetings in the 1960s, dominated Australia's marijuana production in the 1980s, and where residents were convicted in Italy in 2016 for plotting to smuggle 500 kilograms of cocaine into the country. That town also has wineries and a paddle steamer. Welcome to Mildura. Population about 34,500. Crime rate of 14,115 per 100,000. Motor vehicle theft up 96% in 2022. On Numbeo, drug dealing and use is rated 85 out of 100. Very high. The Calabrian Drangheta has operated here since the 1960s. Police claimed annual organized crime meetings were held in Mildura to coordinate nationwide activities. During the 1980s, the Mildura Mafia dominated marijuana production in Australia and ran a nationwide money laundering network. In 1982, informant Dominic Marafiotti named bosses to police. He disappeared in 1985. His parents were executed in Adelaide. His body was later found buried under a chicken coop. In 2014, a Comancheros Bicky and former ADF sniper based in Mildura was arrested transporting large quantities of meth, cocaine, and ecstasy. Mildura sits 550 kilometers from Melbourne. The isolation that makes the Murray River beautiful also makes it useful for people who prefer not to be watched. And if organized crime in wine country sounds surreal, the next town's family violence rate is the worst in the entire state. If your region has the highest family violence rate in all of Victoria, and your town recorded 1,204 breaches of protection orders in a single year, the crisis isn't approaching. It arrived, unpacked, and isn't leaving. Bairnsdale, population about 7,900. Violent crime runs 283% higher than the state average. Safety at the 3rd percentile. Assault rate, 1 offense per 13 residents. Drug possession surged 34%. Public nuisance offenses jumped 76%. East Gippsland has the highest family violence rate in all of Victoria. Breach of family violence orders was the #1 offense with 1,204 recorded instances. Women made up 1,771 of 2,438 victims. The Bairnsdale Advertiser reported economic factors contributing to a local crime wave. In 2023, a year-long investigation resulted in 21 arrests and the seizure of commercial quantities of ice, GHB, cannabis, illegal firearms, tasers, and stolen vehicles across Gippsland. Family violence costs the Gippsland region an estimated $320 million annually. East Gippsland Shire covers over 20,000 square kilometers with sparse police coverage. The 2019 to 2020 Black Summer bushfires compounded everything, and if Victoria's worst family violence rate sounds like rock bottom, the next town has a drug crisis so visible that a national magazine figured out where to buy ice within hours of arriving. The Australian Women's Weekly can figure out where to buy ice within hours of arriving in your town. You don't have a drug problem, you have a drug economy with its own customer service. Shepparton, population about 32,000, crime rate of 14,954 per 100,000, the 4th highest in all of Victoria. Crime increased 15.7% from 2023 to 2024. Drug cultivation and manufacturing nearly doubled. 40% of crimes remain unsolved. Crystal meth has taken what police describe as a vice ice-like grip on the Goulburn Valley. A dealer known as the Candyman was reported selling ice to teenagers at post-debutante parties. Victoria Police's Shepparton CIU made one arrest every single week for over a year. A 2026 syndicate bust seized over 300 grams of meth along with GHB, cocaine, cannabis, a machete, and knuckle dusters. One local mother described watching her two eldest sons destroyed by the drug. One ended up in a secure psychiatric facility with no life in his eyes and no memory. An ambulance team manager explained it takes 3 paramedics and 6 police to control one raging ice user, which strips a small town's entire emergency response off the road. Voted number 2 in Victoria's town poll, 15% of the vote, and the Dob in a Dealer campaign targeting Shepparton produced a 400% increase in drug-related tips to Crime Stoppers. If your suburb contains Victoria's highest concentration of neighborhoods in the bottom 2% of the National Disadvantage Index, youth unemployment in some pockets hits 75%, and 3 generations have never held a job. You're not disadvantaged. You're structurally abandoned. Nor Lane, population about 8,700. Violent crime sits at 30.4 per thousand people. 93.8% of Australian suburbs have less violent crime. Property crime, 108 per thousand. 94.9% of suburbs have less property crime. Crime increased 19% from 2023 to 2024. Chance of violent crime victimization, 1 in 33. State average, 1 in 133, 4 times worse. Ford Motor Company operated in Nor Lane from 1925 until manufacturing ceased on 7 October 2016. Shell, Alcoa, International Harvester, Pilkington, Cresco, all gone. Over 6,000 manufacturing jobs vanished from Geelong's north. In the 1950s, 46% of Geelong workers were in manufacturing. By 2019, under 8%. A 2024 police crime blitz netted 10 arrests, including a loaded firearm seized in Nor Lane and a kidnapping charge. The Bandidos MC has a clubhouse nearby in Breakwater. A senior bandito was shot dead outside it in 2008. Described locally as the Beirut of Geelong, one resident said not a week goes past without reading of a serious assault. Another noted 3 generations of unemployment in some families. If your town wins the popular vote for Victoria's this town with 16%, and the most infamous crime in your history is an unsolved murder, the reputation isn't unfair. It's earned in real time. Mo, population about 16,500, crime rate of 17,665 per 100,000, safety at the 6th percentile. Residents face a 1 in 9 chance of becoming a crime victim. The state average is 1 in 19. 38% rely on government payments as their main income. 38% of school leavers aged 20 to 30 never finished year 12. Labor participation rate, 50%. 7% of dwellings are social housing. 19% of children live in jobless families. The murder of 14-month-old Jayden Lesky in 1997 remains one of Australia's most infamous unsolved child killings. Baby Jayden disappeared from Newbro while in the care of his mother's boyfriend. His body was found months later in Blue Rock Dam. The accused was acquitted. The case has never been solved. In 2025, a man was found dead in Mo after being led to an unused office block used as a squat. A separate fatal stabbing in Newbro saw a 51-year-old charged with murder after a 61-year-old was killed. One visitor described stopping at a Mo shop where every single customer didn't have shoes on. Most appeared intoxicated or high at 11 in the morning. Compared the atmosphere to Alice Springs 20 years ago. A longtime resident said it was good in the 90s, but it grew as druggies moved into the valley. Community leader Cheryl Ragg identified the main concerns as mental health, family violence, safety, public drunkenness, and police numbers. There's a town in Victoria where the local MP told Parliament he can no longer in good conscience allow his staff to walk to the post office to collect mail, a walk of less than 10 minutes, in broad daylight, in what should be a safe country town. That town is Morwell, and the numbers explain why. Population 14,389, crime rate of 37,522 per 100,000. 97% of Victorian suburbs are safer. Violent crime runs 355% higher than the state average. Crime Crimes against the person hit 5,080 per 100,000, more than 4 times the state average. The assault and robbery rate works out to 1 offense per 26.6 residents. In 2024, 122 crimes against the person, 102 weapons offenses, 31 arsons, 25 drug manufacturing cases, 18 trafficking charges, 15 robberies. Criminal incidents jumped 15.6% in 1 year. Family violence order breaches are the most common crime. Latrobe City ranks number 1 in all of Victoria for breach rates at 1,305 per 100,000. CIFA Index, decile 1, the bottom 10% nationally. Unemployment runs between 11 and 14.5%. Median household weekly income is $942. Single-parent families make up 26%. 40% of children are developmentally vulnerable, 4 times the state average. Up to 48% of dwellings in Central Morwell around Commercial Road are public housing. In 2025, a 91-year-old man was found dead after his home was broken into by a man on bail. In a single month, 18 vehicles had their windows smashed by rocks in the Prince's Drive area. A TikToker with over 500,000 followers visited more than 150 suburbs across Victoria and said he could hand on his heart say Morwell was the worst suburb he'd ever seen. Morwell sits in the shadow of the decommissioned Hazelwood Power Station, which closed in March 2017, costing roughly 750 direct jobs and an estimated 2,000 to 3,000 indirect jobs. The 2014 Hazelwood mine fire blanketed the town in toxic smoke for 45 days. Ice is described by police as commonplace in sporting clubs across Gippsland. Acting Superintendent Mark Langhorne explained that given the lower socioeconomic status of areas like the Latrobe Valley, ice is likely used more widely due to the cost. One resident said it plainly: stay far away from Morwell as you can, an absolute slum full of welfare recipients and drug addicts. Crime is really high. Another noted that new police recruits get sent here first. If they can handle this place, they can handle anywhere in Victoria. Here's what makes Morwell number 1 on this list. It's not just the crime rate, though that alone would justify the ranking. It's the convergence, industrial collapse, the ice epidemic, the highest family violence breach rate in the state, 40% of child developmental vulnerability, a mine fire that poisoned the air for 6 weeks, and a local MP who publicly admitted his own staff can't safely walk down the street. That's not a town in decline. That's a town that already declined and nobody came to help.